Hello Magic players, this is a very brief view of 33 commander decks. Recently you guys have asked a lot of questions for my questions and answers video, and one that keeps coming up is, how many commander decks do you have? What decks do you have? What decks do you play? People want to know about my commander decks, and so I'm going to give you a very fast tour of all 33 of my commander decks. First up, we have a Braga deck. This is a very classic flicker deck. We're going to have a lot of elements that help us get Braga through and protect him because it's really powerful. A few support cards like Whirler Rogue get extra tokens onto the battlefield, but also let him through. Master the Unseen means we're going to be playing with Manifest, and Ventilion Click is just really powerful. Next up, I have a second Azorius deck with Noyandar the Royal Shaper, and this is a Spells Matter deck. We're going to control the board, and we're going to be creating some animated elementals. We're going to take advantage of Cataclysmic Gearfolk and other effects that destroy everything except for lands. We're going to protect our stuff, and we're going to take extra turns with cards like Expropriate. Phoenix, God of Deception, is a mill deck. It's a mill deck based around creatures because we can use the toughness to mill. With Phoenix, we're going to be untapping our creatures with cool cards like Intellectual Offering, but unfortunately it often wins with combo like Leyline of the Void or Eater of the Dead. Far too powerful, I might take this deck apart. Next, we have Grenzo Dungeon Warden. He is leading my Infect deck. And the reason why is he can pull cards from the bottom of your library straight onto the battlefield if they have low power, and Infect cards have low power. One cool interaction is the leader is that Praetor down there, and any Infect creature can be turned to great use with Chandra's Ignition or Warstorm Surge. Borborygnos Enraged is a land-throwing Cyclops. This land-centric deck is going to be chucking lands over and over again, throwing them in your graveyard, throwing them at your opponent's face. With cards like Keen Sense, you're going to be able to draw a card every time you chuck it, and whenever lands enter the graveyard, Titania is going to take advantage of it. My Selvala Explorer Return deck is a pretty new deck. This is going to be focused on tapping for lots of mana, especially with the other Selvala and cards like Paradox Engine to untap everything. And we're going to share the love with a little bit of Sylvan Offering, a little bit of Group Hug as we go through. Next up is a very powerful Mizzix of the Ismagus deck. This goes off like crazy. It's a little bit of a storm build as we keep casting tons and tons of instants and sorceries and get them cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. Metallurgic Summonings is going to take advantage of all the spells we cast. Turnabout's going to storm off, and Laboratory Maniac just might win the game. Next up is a very popular deck, Marin of Clan Nel Toth. This is a graveyard synergy deck, and it just runs over and over and over again. Marin is very powerful, sending stuff to the graveyard and then immediately bringing it back. It often wins with Grey Merchant of Asphodel, but a card like Spore Frog is one of my favorites, not to mention Evolutionary Leap as an engine. This is my new Boros deck with Bruised Tarl and Akiri Lineslinger. Akiri is the main one because this is all about artifacts. We're not going to be doing very much attacking until we kill our opponent. Duretti is kind of a lieutenant of this deck, very powerful. Kirkland Ironworks is going to get a lot of things in the graveyard to get it back later, and let's just throw in a Hellkite Tyrant because I want to win the game with that guy. Vorel of the Whole Clade is my Simic +1/+1 counters deck. Vorel doubles the counters on target artifact, creature, or land. I really wish it could hit a planeswalker, but that's why I have Gilder Baron in the deck. Vorel is going to double up counters on things and go crazy, but not as crazy as Doubling Season, because that's just the all-star of this deck. And Chasm Skulker is an example of how we can just go big and wide at the same time. Karlov of the Ghost Council is my Voltron commander. He gets bigger and bigger as I gain little bits of life. So I have a bunch of cool creatures that'll give me little life boosts, but also Archangel of Thune, which will boost my whole team. Umezawa's Jite is an insane piece of equipment because you can pull counters off and keep triggering Karlov. This is a weird combo deck, Selena Dark Angel. The good thing about Selena is that you can pay 2 life to return it to your hand, and you can keep paying life over and over and over again. So you can basically kill yourself, which will then allow you to switch your life with Lich or Mirror Universe or Soul Conduit with one of your opponents. Yeah, it's kind of a really silly and stupid card, but hey, it works. Karthus Tyrant of Jund is my dragon tribal deck, and Karthus gains control of all dragons, which could be relevant with the upcoming commander set. I'm okay with giving my opponents dragons with the Descent of the Dragons and other cool effects. I'm going to also Primal Surge all my dragons onto the battlefield, and the Scourge will just do tons of damage with the dragons. Next up, we have Angus Mackenzie, and he is a fog on a druid. This is sort of a fog tribal deck, and it has some heavy planeswalker synergies. There's Teferi and the Chainveil in there, but also Constant Mists will take care of everything along with Glacial Chasm. Next up, we have Send Triplets, which is all about playing your deck instead of my deck. Send Triplets went through an awesome change when we could tap for any mana, not just Esper. And so I decided I was going to not really have win conditions, just play with your deck. So the Insidious will play your cards, Gonti will play your cards, and I'll make sure to have the mana to cast all of your cool spells. Next up is Hazazon Tamar, one of my favorite decks, and Hazazon is very cool. Basically, when you play him, the next turn you get a bunch of Sand Warriors based on how many lands you have. So you want a bunch of lands, like Azusa putting tons of lands into play. Avenger of Zendikar also plays really well with lands, and Shared Animosity can turn a bunch of Sand Warriors into huge threats. It also works very well with plant tokens, I'm told. Next, we have Tasigur of the Golden Fang. Tasigur is another land-centric deck. It's all about delving in the graveyard. I'd like to say that the lieutenant of this deck is the Gitrog monster, along with killing people with Dark Depths and Villainous Wealth. It's about ramping like crazy, but also playing with crazy land synergies. Queen Marchesa is a Mardu control deck. It's going to make sure that people have a hard time attacking you, and it'll eventually win with some stupid enchantment rather than actually attacking your opponent's back. Rico of Two Reflections is a combo deck. It is full of tons of combos, not just, Palancron or Kiki-Jiki Splinter Twins. It's got the Bio-Visionary combo, and that's what it's really going for. Bio-Visionary says that if there are ever 4 Bio-Visionaries at the end of your turn, you win the game. So my whole goal is to basically have a bunch of Bio-Visionaries, and Riku helps that out a lot. Next up, we have my Abzan Toughness deck with the partner commanders Sidar Kondo and Ikra Shadiki the Usurper. These two have excellent synergies with each other, both having huge asses and letting people get through. It has a little bit of a defender theme that Axebane Guardian says. A lot of effects like Meekstone, which keep powerful creatures from untapping, and Assault Formation for dealing damage with our toughness. Nekusar is a classic deck where he forces everyone to draw and does damage while it happens. So a card like Liliana's Caress can do a ton of damage to the field, as I Wheel of Fortune everyone to their death, and then Yawgmoth's Will everything back again. Now I have another combo-centric commander with Bruce Tarl and Cadell, the Chosen of Krufix. Cadell taps for a ton of mana, and Bruce Tarl is there for, well, kind of the colors. Basically, the lieutenant of this deck is Jeskai Ascendancy. Jeskai Ascendancy will let everything untap, and the Krosan Restorer will untap lands. It's all about untapping lands, creating huge creatures, and going off. Yidris Maelstrom Wielder is kind of a weird Voltron extra turns sort of new deck. You can see extra turns there, extra combat phases, and basically playing tons and tons of stuff for free. Next deck is Hoard of Notions. It's an elemental tribal deck. Hoard of Notions pulls elementals out of your graveyard directly into play, which is very cool. And you can do a ton with some crazy expensive elementals. So you throw a bunch of them in your graveyard for free. There's Omnath there that's very powerful as well, and Gravesifter gets them back in your hand. This is my Child of Alara deck, and this is a God tribal deck. Gods from Theros, that is. Gods from Theros are indestructible, so Child of Alara destroying everything doesn't do very much. So I'm going to make sure that people don't attack me. I'm going to get a lot of mana from Sarah's Sanctum and all the other enchantments that we have here. I'm going to make sure to be able to sacrifice Child of Alara, and then I'm going to get everything back with Replenish. Next is the Karn Silver Golem deck. This is very much of an artifact big mana combo deck because Karn can turn artifacts into creatures, and there are a bunch of crazy synergies which allow you to do stuff with those creatures and play huge Eldrazi. Azuri Renegade Leader is an elf tribal deck, and he gives all of your elves overrun and can do it over and over and over again. So we're going to make a ton of mana based on all those elves. We're going to Craterhoof Behemoth. We're going to Azuri everyone to their doom. Nzada Hedron Grinder is sort of another weird going wide combo deck in red. It's a very popular deck these days, and I'm going to make a ton of little creatures with dragon fodder, and then I'm going to draw a bunch of cards with Crimson Wisps. And I might do some damage with Purphoros, especially if I'm playing my Purphoros commander deck. Purphoros God of the Forge is very powerful because he does damage based on the creatures that enter the battlefield, and he can pump those creatures when they attack. So cool synergies like Maga Infestation to wipe my own board and kill my opponents, down to Norn the Wary, which is the most annoying combo with Purphoros ever. Ugh. Next up, we have one of my favorite decks ever, which is Braid's Conjurer Adept. Braids lets everyone put their big fatties straight onto the battlefield, but you plan to have bigger and fatter creatures and take advantage of your opponents. Tidespout Tyrant can bounce all sorts of stuff back to their hands. Propaganda makes it hard for them to attack you, and you might as well copy their cool creature with Phantasmal Image. This is Avacyn, but she's not in English. Basically, she makes everything indestructible, and then you can start wiping the board with awesome effects like Wrath of God. You can also control the board with some targeted removal and some hate bears. 8.5 Tails is particularly powerful in this deck. Athreos, God of Passage, is technically a black and white, an Orzhov commander, but I have him over here in the mono black session because it's really a Shadowborn Apostle deck. Athreos will tax your opponents when you send creatures to the graveyard, and you're going to be sending a lot of creatures to the graveyard because your entire deck is 1/1 Shadowborn Apostles that sacrifice a bunch of them, 6 to be exact, to get a crazy demon onto the battlefield. That's what this does: sacrifices creatures, taxes your opponents, gets demons. The final deck that I have for you is Erebos God of the Dead. This is a black enchantment sort of deck. It has very few creatures in it. It's all about playing these really cool enchantments. You can see there Nether Void, the Abyss, and Pestilence. They're going to be killing your opponents. I want to give you a quick breakdown, some of the missing color combinations. I don't have blueless, whiteless, greenless, or a Jeskai deck, but I have doubled up on Orzhov, 3 total Orzhov decks, 2 total 5-color decks, 2 Azorius decks, and 2 red decks. Now the logical follow-up question is, why oh why do I have so many commander decks? It's really not even feasible for me to play all of them. Well, the reason why I have so many decks is the same reason why I have this channel. I really have a passion for deck building. That's what I really like about Commander and like about Magic, is putting things together and building them up and tweaking them and tuning them. Also, I'm old. I've been playing Magic for a very long time, and I really want to have a place like a deck or in a cube for a bunch of my old cards instead of in a 5K underneath my bed. I feel like even if I don't play the deck, if they're in there, they kind of have a home. Alright everyone, my name is Jumbo Commander, and this has been a quick tour of all 33 of my commander decks. In less than a week, I will be in Grand Prix Las Vegas, hopefully playing Magic with a bunch of you. What commander decks should I bring to Vegas? Leave a comment below, or you can tweet at me at Jumbo Commander, or send an email, jumbocommander@gmail.com. Thanks again, guys. See you soon.